Hi, Benji.
Hey, Michael, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, I was not sure. So I was 3 minutes early and nobody was here. So often people are a minute early. So I was worried.
Fair enough. Well, I've because I know that the snooze on my phone is 9 minutes, so I set the alarm to be 10 minutes before a meeting, and then I snooze it.
Yeah.
And I just rush to get anything done in those 9 minutes that I possibly can.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the conversations that because I was last week in London, I hadn't any time for GraphQL. But man, London was cold for England. I mean,
yeah, it's been a lot of cold recently, actually. Especially, last week was pretty cold.
Yeah.
Hey, Van, how's it going?
Hi, everything good. One thing, my electricity can go down.
Yeah, we saw.
Yeah, with the schedule. Yeah, so I will be in the dark.
So that's this is still happening, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, it's planned blackout. So 4 hours with electricity, 4 hours without electricity, and 4 hours you maybe have electricity, and it's like on rolling schedule. But optic fiber works like whole day, 24.
Yeah, they're different thing. It's like also often telephone if you have things.
No, I specifically did optic fiber because previously I had like Ethernet, and Ethernet equipment is not working.
It needs
optic fiber
electricity.
is like, yeah, because it's direct from my flat to provider. There is no like electrical equipment in between.
so great.
Do you have like a battery backup for your modem and router and stuff?
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
But aren't you close to the border?
Yeah, it's like for whole Ukraine. After like nuclear, Russians got like nuclear power station. That power station generate 20% of electricity for Ukraine. It's not even a question of like rocket missile attacks on electric infrastructure. It's a question they just got like biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. And it's not generating electricity for Ukraine anymore, like last 3 or 4 months. So with grid, there is not enough electricity, even if manufacturing is not working, just for like months.
Yeah, dangerous times, but I hope
very much
that I can trust internet.
That's true. Well, speaking of dangerous times, let's talk about defer and stream.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing? Where do we want to kick things off based on the discussions from last week? I missed some of the discussions last week, but got caught up. So yeah, where do we want to kick things off today?
Yeah, I guess I want check in with Yvonne if you spent any time implementing what your proposal was.
I have like one thing I promised to do before doing that, but I will try to have a prototype before Thursday, because we agreed on that. It might be not but something working. And show that, and maybe I will actually. What do you think? Should I add it to agenda separate item about that, or it will be part of like batch stream defer batch, or we should have separate one? What do you think, Rob? What would work the best?
I don't have anything else to talk about right now, so if you want to just add that,
Okay.
And then if something else comes up in the meeting or something that we also want to discuss, we can batch it together.
Okay, so I will add agenda item, and I will try as much as possible to have prototype for first day. I'm not sure about spec changes, so I will focus on JavaScript to show it's possible to implement, and spec text, if it's possible to implement, spec text can be pretty easily written.
Yeah, definitely. Don't worry about the spec text. I think if we have an implementation and we do decide to go in that direction, then I can take over the spec text.
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
no problem for me.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So that's the game plan. By this week's primary working group call, Ivan, do you think you'll have something to show?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We discussed it with Jakob last time because we cannot stretch stream diff indefinitely. So I propose idea from ShapeUp, with methodology where you say this feature important enough to dedicate a week for it, is not important enough to prolong indefinitely and block progress. So this was my point last week. So to deliver on that agreement on the first day, I will present this idea together with them, showing it's possible to implement in GraphQL.js.
Yeah, I know Matt had some opposition that he posted. He told me that he's not able to make it today, but we could probably discuss more with him on Thursday.
Yeah, that would be great. It's one that, it's one in my comment, right? In reply to my comment, or there is something else?
Yeah, he replied to your comment.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's we now have multiple differs again on the same parcel. Yeah, it's getting 3 different. Because we have more incrementals than the first.
Yeah, this is real consideration. So it's not it's pros and cons. Either we have deduplication, and we saw issue with duplicating things, or we have unspecified number of incremental payloads, because previously we have only 2. Actually, one thing I just realized, it would be good to discuss it with Matt personally on first day. But one thing I understood, if you don't care about fragments, if we forget about, not in a way everything is about a fragment, but if we speak about entire query, you don't know how many payloads you need to fulfill entire query or in a certain path. My comment only apply to fragments. So previously it was guaranteed. No, actually per path. Yeah, per path. So not per entire query. Yeah. So per entire query, you don't know how many differ inside it. So you don't know how many payloads, but per fragment or per level, previously it was 2 differ. My proposal changed it in unspecified numbers.
Yeah, I think the thing is, how do you know that this path is complete?
Yeah, done property. We use it for stream, and idea is to use it with the same meaning. And we discussed last time, so done. And thank you, Benji, because you left a comment and additional clarification on that. that done actually mean all the differs on this level is finished. It doesn't mean like all the differ recursively finished. Only this path, like stuff on this path, is finished.
But do we still tell the client in advance what is being deferred?
Yeah, it's separate proposal because like
Okay. Okay. Don't worry.
if you look at Rob initial command, he also doesn't mention pending. So we need pending anyway to solve original issue, to solve like issue about clients figuring out what was in line and what wasn't in line. So we need pending for that. And like heads up, I'm like have like some alternative proposal for pending, but for this week I will focus on that, and I will do like a pending proposal with little bit different pending format later.
Yeah, I separated out just because I didn't want us to like be bike shedding specific details about pending when we're trying to come to a conclusion about deduplication.
Yeah, it's the same. Like any pending applied to my approach or to Robo approach. It's in this sense it's orthogonal. Concern. And by the way, like pending is not kind of implemented yet, as I understand. Like it's relatively new. Benja suggested it like a month or two ago, so it's like still raw. And we didn't deeply discuss like if we all agreed on this specific format or not. Everybody agreed on, I think, on a general idea, but not a particular format.
Ivan, I had a question in terms of your proposal about error boundaries. Are you still right now? We don't bubble up, further than the branch. I'm just wondering if that, I mean, here we're sort of merging in some sense the payloads. If you're thinking that
so the defer was also like an error boundary if it's not dropped, right?
Yeah.
So that was what we decided on before. But I guess that if you're splitting one defer path into several different payloads, and the payloads could be at different paths, then you would have to, the error boundary would also have to coincide with however the server is splitting it. Is that correct?
Not necessary. So in a sense, we have like a data property. So if error happened, we can ship like a path with errors and data.
No, the problem is it's not that, Ivan. It's that if you take non-null propagation into it, then it could be that the whole result would be erased. But since you have now multiple patches in the same path, you're delivering the first, but the second would actually delete the whole data section that you now sent. We now don't have the same logic than we had before, where defer is essentially our error boundary, but it's per patch.
Imagine without deduplication, return back to labels, to what everybody already implemented, kind of, and the experimental flag. So with labels, both we have label A and label B, and both include like fields that throw, and label A already shipped, and label B, like for example, have like error, and it's like in like some field, another field, not shared field. So label A already shipped, and label B kind of like do no propagation. So since we decide to do
But it's more it's more deterministic. Like the idea is that a deferred election set is essentially its error boundary, and this is. I don't say that this is a stopper or whatever, but it's changed now. This would change it because now we.
This would change.
Right. I guess what I was thinking is that it might be possible to keep the same error boundaries, but you know, the mental model where we are saying that we are never we're never sending duplicate data, and we're acknowledging, you know, that we are working off of essentially a cache, you know, the client is patching, you know, the original results. It's sort of in that mental model, it may no longer make sense to have those error boundaries.
Yes.
You know, I think we could, you know, I think we can. So basically, in the implementation, I'm not sure that you're going to be, you know, the prototype that you hopefully will get working. I'm not sure if you'll have time to deal with that, but I guess I'm flagging that as like an open question.
Yeah, it's good thing. I will write. Don't know what's better. I will probably edit my original comment, not to have like something important in the middle of the thread, and I will put it on top and saying this is the change. I might and explain why I don't think it's an issue. So yeah, it's an important question. You're right. It doesn't make sense to if differs. Not it's not like defer doesn't influence like a shape of response. It's mean like why do we have this behavior for errors? So yeah, it will be the same incremental thing. Now, from client point of view, I think like
from client point of view is different because you don't have this essentially selection set behavior.
Yeah, but
it's different
originally. So yeah, if we switch to incremental for response, we don't have it for shapes. So clients need patching, and if client do patching and constantly check if it have enough data to fulfill certain fragment, for that mental model, having like saying like this patch basically nulls out with subtree makes sense because client will do checking anyway. We will do merging and checking.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking in terms. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we are already changing that shape by merging differs, right? It's not like it's the reverse. There we essentially squash things into, and so the user is anyway not in control anymore of outlining that he wants a certain error boundary, right?
Yeah, and actually, in a sense, we return back to basic GraphQL, where error boundaries is based on not on fragments and unwind fragments, but on response as a single tree. So delivery now is based on response as single tree without like influence of fragments, and errors the same. So I actually like think using a comma razor, we add less semantic into a spec by keeping responses one tree, just like with different branches delivered incrementally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure in terms of how clients are going to use this. I mean, like if you have a component that says it needs, you know, a deferred component, two different deferred components, let's say, and one of them causes an error and one of them doesn't. I'm not sure that the client is going to expect that an error in a one deferred component crashes the other. or crashes the original tree. You know, meaning so again, I think it's important to flag it because this mental model, you know, suggests that might. What?
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, like I don't know. Unless you can definitely speak to Apollo client better here. But for example, if we had two deferred fragments and one errored, one didn't, and they were in the same kind of initial request, we would just have one error state stored that comes back, right?
And it's also like one thing that we have to remember here is if we dropped all defers, then this error bubbling would anyway happen to the whole tree. So it would anyway delete these side selection sets.
So my proposal is basically a return to that. We have single response, and it's just like you just suggestions that parts of it can be delivered as patches. So semantic is the same as original GraphQL without defer. If you ask like two things,
but I think the problem is that semantics are the same, but it actually does lead to surprising behavior, because if you did inline everything, then sure, you would never get an initial response. But here we're dealing with a situation in which the initial response was already sent and was considered valid, and were you know, potentially, you know, making the tree dirty to some extent by nulling it after, you know, after the data has already showed up. So I'm not sure. Again, it fits with the mental model that you're suggesting to get rid of these error boundaries, but I think we can tweak the mental model a little bit. Meaning we're talking about, I mean, another way of looking at this is instead of each deferred payload patching the original response, is that another way of looking at it is that you can supplement the deferred payload from the original response, meaning you can view the initial data or whatever cache data is available, you can view that as the patch, and the you know, to the payload that is coming down, where there are multiple patches have now led to this fulfilled fragment. You know, so I'm not really sure that the preferred behavior once we send an initial response would be, you know, to null it with a deferred payload. I'm not even sure. It's sort of like undefined behavior. Like, how would the client deal with that? So I'm just not sure about it. I just don't think it's so simple. I can see really both sides.
Yeah, no, and I'm like I myself am also not yet quite happy with that, but it's good that we explore both branches, and then we can put them side to side and see what we take from which from these ideas, because I'm not sure yet if it's worth. So the strange feeling here is you put defer on somewhere, like the merging that well with me, but now we are having like, it feels like you have no control at all on the incremental data shapes.
You have like only one control. In my proposal, you allow server, if server decides to do it, you allow servers to send it outside of initial response. So it's the only control that you have. So
yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I also argued a lot that the server has to be more in control of this thing, and it cannot be all up to the user, right? For a lot of efficiency reasons. But yeah, it feels strange that we broke out this rule again, that we have multiple patches per path.
we start breaking it after we removed the label. So removing label was a tipping point, because together with removing labels, we start do merging of the duplication of the fields, and let's sequence of event. We removed the label, we agreed on partial deduplication, and we kind of like moved away, because in a Weibo scenario you had like a full control. You had error boundaries and you had like a control over a shape, and you have guarantees that stuff delivered at the same time, even without merging at all. So initial response was totally separate from labeled one. You didn't need even to merge like. So I'm like, my position on that, there is one paradigm with label, and we explore that and we find like bunch of corner cases and a problem. We shift like, in my view, halfway toward like complete deduplication and merging approach. We shift like halfway, and I'm proposing to move it full way to be like opposite. So in a label scenario, client have like all the control, and a server need to just fulfill that label. It had the freedom to fulfill it like just order of labels, different order of labels, but it was bound to supply stuff in exactly same shape. And shift it to opposite. Yeah,
let's see when you have a bit more fodder on the things, then we can actually make more decisions on it. But I mean, you are implementing that at the moment, huh?
Yeah. At the moment I'm doing like another GraphQL PR. I want to finish it today and like switch, and I have nothing else or more. Like it will be #1 priority to do that stream differ prototype. And since I think like Yakov have like partly similar implementation when he deduplicate like leaves. I will look into it and see can I reuse like part of Yakov work to make like think faster.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just curious what everyone else is feeling is on the scale of deduplication versus the amount of payloads being sent. That's really what the trade-off is, right?
Yeah, it depends on, for me it depends on a couple of things, but these are implementation details in the end. Is how much or how often do we branch execution, because that's expensive or can be expensive. How's locking scenarios there, and a couple of things. So I'm not sure yet.
I also have a non-standard use case that I'd like to use Stream for, that I think that this might impact. And that is, I want to be able to use Stream to stream large amounts of data. And I'm talking like hundreds of megabytes, gigabytes even, which Stream could do. Now, obviously, this isn't targeted for the browser, because browser doesn't want to receive quite that amount of data, but it can be useful in various situations. So having to sort of maintain this cache or this information in server memory to know what has and has not been sent is not ideal. But I'm not sure that that's actually required in what Ivan is proposing at the moment. I'd need to see the final implementation. And certainly also then think about how, what if we've got multiple things that defer and then end up streaming, the same field or all the edge cases. But ideally, I mean, my aim for this, and it was me that brought up the idea originally of reducing the amount of payloads that we're sending, is I would like to reduce it in a reasonable way that we can do statically. So I'm not worried about fully eliminating every single bit of deduplication. I just want to like get rid of the worst offenders effectively. Like if we've got multiple defers at the same level, let's merge them together, that kind of thing. But if we've got defers that are children of other defers or streams, I'm not so worried about that. I'm not so worried about pushing it the whole way.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we're waiting to see what you come up with, Ivan, then, and then we'll have a lot more to talk about, I guess, at this meeting next week. around that.
And Thursday, since
And Thursday. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know how much time we'll get into. I was looking at the agenda and it looks like we have lots of room right now on it. But who knows? Things can fill up quickly during the week.
yeah, I will submit agenda item today, so we will have a guaranteed spot.
Great.
On Benji's point, I think the implementation, you know, is you know, whether that'll actually be a problem is definitely going to be implementation specific. I'm hopeful that it wouldn't be, but
Right.
Yeah, just to clarify, Benji, about your comment, you worried about cache on a server or on a client?
Server.
Only on the server, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so on a server, it's easier to show like, yeah. I plan to do it without any walking. I think it's like in my head, it's possible to do simply without walking and kind of like statically without query planning. The similar way how Jakob deduplicate like leaves. So I want to do the same thing and without like branching execution and without maintaining original response, just remembering what's already sent and what's not.
Okay.
Without storing like original. So I plan to implement to like alleviate your concern.
Excellent. Sounds
We'll
good.
see if possible.
Is there a concern? I think that Yakov brought this up in the thread of a query written in a way that could lead to like a lot of payloads again. I guess I haven't like fully thought it through, but I don't know if you have like 10 different defers, but they all overlap with each other by only one field or something. Could that lead to like 100 payloads? Something like that?
In my case, it's not possible because in my case, like server can decide to do one big payload per level, initial and one big thing. One thing stuff is merged with inner between inner and outer payloads. So having actually like my proposal solve that problem because you don't have like clients don't have any control over duplication and have no influence on duplication. So you cannot create big response because like what I'm proposing is like full deduplication. So and number of incremental pay like on the same level, number of like payloads is not is controlled by a server, not by a client.
so Ivan,
Go ahead.
so Ivan, would you consider I mean, the mental model that you're, you know, that this new proposal says that we can send, you know, multiple payloads, meaning more payloads than defers, et cetera, but the main goal was deduplication. Would it make sense, like for the initial proof of concept, to make sure that we are not sending additional payloads and we're only deduplicating, meaning we're not sending payloads as they're ready. Sorry, we're not sending fields as they're ready unless a fragment is completed. And then when a fragment is completed, it's sent, but it's, you know, deduplicated. Even though we could send, you know, fields when they're not ready, would it make sense to like separate that from this initial implementation?
So you're proposing just say one incremental per level, right? Per path.
Yeah, meaning right now we have a completed or a, you know, field that says when something is completed, but the idea would be that the idea would be that you know, that's because we could send fields, you know, partial data for a fragment before it's completed, but we're, you know, you've changed the model so that to some extent so that we can send incomplete fragments, but we don't need to you know, send incomplete fragments. We could just send the complete ones, use the new model and have completely deduplicated data. And that I'm just wondering if that might solve any performance issue in terms of getting too many payloads. I'm not sure if that was Matt's only concern, but that's basically, you know, you were suggesting that the server could do that, but I guess what I'm saying is, should we mandate that the server does that, at least for the initial release?
We can. One downside of that, if at some point we decided to return like labels, yeah, labels is another thing. Like if at some point we devise some mechanism where people can say like on this path there is like two groups of fields and like, but actually what I think maybe I like personally my mental model is like it's up to server to like
but
decide.
it's not like for me it's not a problem per fragment, right? I was really quite happy with the initial where we said we have one incremental payload per path, because that solves a ton of issues. And you don't need label, you don't have the problem with the fragments and stuff like that.
Was it suggestion that we only have one path, one payload per path? Because can you still do that and still have without deduplication?
It took so
I think like, that was really, that solved so many issues.
I can explore that. Yeah, I think you're right. So basically question, I need to see if it's possible, but if it's possible, you're right, because we should not batch proposal and changes together. So if you can do the duplication with guaranteed number of payloads, we should do that, because it's what we agreed on. And if I have like a proposal to allow server to send like stuff in series, like allow to server to break it to smaller chunks, it's like separate proposal. So I actually like the idea to try to split it up into two separate discussion things, if it's possible. I need to see from top of my head, it looks like it's possible, but I'm not completely sure.
Maybe I'm not understanding the suggestion, but wasn't this the scenario where we said that it wasn't possible?
It wasn't possible with my proposal. We do merging on different levels, between differ on the different levels. So this is a core thing here. So if you open my command, I have like a 3 points. If you scroll a little bit down, yeah. So basically with 3 points, and so like we have like this number 1, and it's look like this is a critical part. So we merge not only on the same level, but top level differ wins. If we apply that, potentially we can like lock like top level, defer until like all the inner defers are shipped and then send it.
So you would have to merge across defers,
Yeah.
and that could lead to, so like, I mean, let's say that these two fields were on the same level, but they were in different defers at different paths, they would get merged together. And one of them being slow would hold up the other defer from being completed. Then that's the
Yeah.
trade-off, right?
Yeah, that's a trade-off, but we have like guaranteed number of. I need to think more, but it's actually a good point to discuss. I will think if it's possible in my proposal, and if it's introduced like working that Michael was worried about when stuff gets execution gets like tricky.
Yeah, so that would like if we can keep that, I would have less concerns. Like
Yeah,
if we
I
have
feel like
one development.
that trade-off for me isn't a good one, because if I were writing this query as a client developer, it's because I have a component that renders these three fields and a component that renders these fields. And now just because of that overlap, they are completely blocked by each other. You can't have one.
No. That's not what I meant. I just, for me, if we have a solution without the blocking issues or so, then like I had less concerns. But at the moment, like for me, that we duplicate data is not a concern, because it can be faster. And anyway, in the client, updating a cached thing just with the same information again, for me, is not a major concern. But having like multiple patches per pass makes the client more difficult.
Yeah, I'm with Rob on this one, though. From a client developer's point of view, one of the main reasons that we're letting people know that defer can help them out is by knowing that if they have slower parts of their selection sets that they want to have come later, they're gonna chunk them up. And if they know they can use multiple defers to split things up further and know that they're going to get that data back when it's ready and it's not dependent on another fragments data coming back slower, I think that's a selling feature for defer, and I think that will throw people off if we tie them together.
Yeah,
exactly. So you would also be more for duplication or deduplication, because that would point more to deduplicator. Because
no, it's we discuss like three option. One option is nothing is locked and stuff duplicated. It's one option. Another, but you have only two responses. Another option, like my proposal, is no duplication, no locking, but you have multiple payload per path. And we have like third one that Yakov suggested, that have no deduplication, no duplication. It have like two payloads per initial and second per path, but we have locking. So we have like a combination of three options. Each one have like fulfill two things, but have one trade-off.
I think we need to write them down and then see and then weigh the trade-offs against each other. I have
Yeah, the blocking trade-off to me seems seems like a non-starter to me.
I think so too.
For me too.
So
for me too.
So I think we could stick with the two that we have now, the other two options, right?
Yeah, but it's good to write with three options.
Yeah.
Because
to write them down and see. Just to have the information, even if we know. I mean, we did the same with the union stuff, right? We already knew that some proposals will not lead to a solution, but it's good to have it written down and see maybe other improvements that we can take from that. So yeah, I'm
so
also-
after this meeting, I'll leave a comment on this on here that says that we talked about this other option where we keep the number of payloads per path, but that's the trade-off that you get, and we were mostly non-comfortable with that, so we're not considering it.
Yeah, that'd be
So we
great.
have it written down.
Yeah, I mean, the option, I think we're all agreed, the option that I was suggesting also is this non-blocking option. And again, I think it's possible. The main reason I haven't, I'm like taking the opposite tack as Ivan. I'm hesitant to try implementing it unless I'm actually sure that we want it. I'm pretty sure we can, but I think it's a lot of work.
It's gonna be a ton of work. Yeah.
So I think, sorry, Jakob, I didn't catch up. So we think it can be done without blocking, right?
Yeah, I do. I think it can be done without blocking. I think you basically report out each field. You execute each deferred field, and then you report it to all the fragments that have requested it. And then you need a new mechanism, at least in GraphQL.js, I guess. You need a new mechanism for deciding whether a deferred payload is complete, rather than because you've already you're sort of assembling the fields. From assembling the whole payload from the leaves, as opposed to sort of the other way around, where
to clarify what I say, locking is not in server locking. It's not like about server. It's a locking in a sense like you have inner defer, and inner defer should wait for more top level defer to be shipped first, because stuff deduplicated between inner defer and outer defer. Outer defer wins. So
oh no, so I'm sorry, I didn't take, I think I'm looking at it that you can deduplicate without like the outer winning versus the inner winning, meaning whatever resolves first would win, is in my conception. And I think that's also possible. I think that's what people, what might be most desirable. I think it is possible. I'm just not. I think it seems like a more work than I have on my plate than I can handle right this moment.
okay.
Rob, while you're sharing your screen, something I was wondering if we could do in this call before we run out of time. It would be great if this week, when we're talking about defer stream stuff, like we usually do at the working group meetings, we give a little update on where things stand. It'd be great if the top level list of discussion items, if you go back to just the list of open discussion items, if we could make sure the ones that really are blocked, like we really need a decision to be made on, are all kind of labeled the same way. I know we have 3 open question ones, but is the process we've been following, if it has an open question label on it, those are really the most pending ones to have figured out, right? Because if so, I'm just wondering if we could add open questions to some of these newer ones that we've been talking about as well.
Yeah, definitely. So let's put it on this one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if we also had the deduplicate fields one, December 19, 2022. Just the 5th one down, I think. I think that one probably needs, because I think this is your proposal, Ivan.
Yeah, we decide to I think like, yeah, this basically is what I will close this one, or you close it like after a call. I will close it and explain like all the thing. It's the same idea of initial responses patches. I just like figure out a way how to do that. So it's fully like fully overlaps. No?
Yeah, I think it's been evolved. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you noted David's comment there as well, Ivan. Just something to take a look at. He was, pointing out an issue with the example. Cool. So
one open question for me, and I think we should have like separate, if we move the duplication filled into separate one. I feel like we need the same about pending to discuss like our proposal for, because like after we remove label, it's two main questions: how to merge stuff and how to show to a client that something is in line or not in line in initial response. So I think it's an open question, but it's hidden under like huge discussion in issue, or clients cannot reliably.
It's buried down in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would.
Which one is it? Sorry.
Yeah, about pending.
I think it was, yeah, it was somewhere.
For
It is in
pending.
that one. I think it is. The clients can't reliably distinguish. So the third one from the top.
This is the issue I opened to discuss pending.
Oh, sorry, it's already spoken.
Okay. So
Great,
we
yeah.
have one. So okay,
That's
I will write in this.
So
one.
actually, why don't I mark this one as resolved, and I'll leave
Okay.
a comment linking to the other 3 discussions.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So that is the process, right? Anything that is labeled with open question, we're kind of considering as being the things that need to be figured out to kind of help progress through the stages, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. Should we leave it at that for today?
I think so. Yeah. I know, Benoit, you were asking earlier today about some of the internal statistics we have on defer usage that we could bring to this working group and share, just to give people a heads up of how things have been going since we've had people using it. But yeah, I don't know if you looked further into the stats, Benoit, or.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. At some point in a future call, we'll share some interesting findings as we put the stats together. It'll be fun to talk about that.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, maybe that's a good place to stop. I know it's definitely much later in the day for some of you than it is me. So maybe we should call it quits.
All right.
And
sounds
yeah.
good. We'll see most of you hopefully on Thursday, and then again next Monday.
Yes. And Ivan, we're all excited to see the proof of concept. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone for taking your time out to join this weekly meeting.
Yeah, for sure. And Ivan, I might be joining you soon with power outage. My neighbor's generator just kicked on, so that's never a good sign. Awesome. Take care, all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.